Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am your host, Joel, and today we are discussing a sad topic, and that is electric vehicles that might have missed the mark. That is correct. This show is all about the worst EVs on the road today in 2024. We have Sebastian from the Kilowatt Station joining us today. But before we get started, let's be clear. Sebastian and I are huge EV fans. We own EVs. We will probably always own EVs. But as an EV owner or a car owner in general, you have to be critical when a company releases a vehicle that is not ready or is just flat out bad. We will give you our opinion, if it's worth anything, about EVs that don't quite live up to the hype. And some of these are from major legacy car manufacturers. So before we get started, Sebastian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I've not really looked at your list yet, so you might actually have some that are legitimately bad on it. But most of the ones I chose aren't even that bad necessarily, but there are so many really, really good EVs on the market right now that just being okay isn't good enough. And so
Mhm.
that's how they ended up on my list.
So yeah, that is true. I mean, some of I have one or two that may be just that bad, and we may not see anymore. But I think the issue is that some people, especially this happened probably 2 or 3 years ago. Some people just rush to get an EV out there, like, oh, we have to get EVs out there. The market is growing, and now that they see, yeah, the market is still growing, but maybe not as robust as everyone thought it was. Now they're like, oh man, we put out something we shouldn't have just to say we have an EV. So that's kind of where we're at today. All right. So Sebastian has five. I have five. Some of these may be the same, but we'll have probably different reasons why they are the same. So let's get started. Sebastian, what is no particular order? We're just going to give you five each. What is the first one on your list?
So I started mine just with the new Fiat 500e. So this is one that it's a super cute car. Like it has all the spirit of a Fiat 500, but it's kind of expensive for what you get. You know, it starts at $33,000. There is no tax credit eligibility. And for 33 grand, you're getting a two-seat vehicle that has an EPA estimated range of 150 miles. It just, you know, at 33 grand, you're talking now of tax credit, you can get a Model 3 for 2 grand more.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even if all you're doing is like little short commutes or whatever, I still think the Model 3 would be a better car in every situation than the Fiat will. But, it's a shame. If they could get it cheaper, it's a really cute car that definitely, I think there's a place for it for someone, especially if you live like in a tight urban city or whatever, it makes sense. But just at
Mm-hmm.
that pricing, it's hard to really kind of recommend it.
Yeah, like some of these cars are great, maybe not for our market. We in the US, we like to travel. We like to drive 3, 4, 500 miles. Some of these cars would work great in Europe, China, where people don't travel that much, where if they travel long distance, they travel by rail. But we really need to focus on kind of, you're right, what works best for us here. So my first one on the list is kind of a shock, and there's reasons for this, is actually the Tesla Model X. So basically, I'm rating this car on the list purely for maintenance and repair costs. So everyone knows Tesla makes great cars. The Model 3 and Model Y are probably the top two EVs on the market today. But something happened with the Model X and the Model S. It's a great looking car. It has an impressive price tag, around 80K, and it also has impressive repair costs. Some of the things that I've seen working with Model X owners and seeing Model X being sold, aftermarket in the used vehicle area, was the Falcon Wing door sensors. There's a lot of issues with the Falcon Wing door sensors, either messing up, stop working, don't work correctly, where they go up halftime and they'll go up at all. A lot of issues with the Falcon door sensors, and it's not a cheap fix. If you're not familiar with the Model X, it has the windshield and the top roof are all one glass. So you get a crack in the windshield, which Tesla owners know is very common. That's like a $2,800 fix, $2,800 fix right there. And I know some people don't want to take that hit in their insurance, but that's a very expensive cost. It does have the bigger battery. It does take longer to charge. You would think taking a road trip in a Model X versus a Model Y that you would save some time. No, you're actually at the superchargers, maybe 10, 15 minutes longer each time for Model X because it doesn't have the great charging curve and it has to have a bigger battery to fill up. Also, like I said, the charging speeds can be a little slower. There are reports, of course, with the X and S with the issues with the leaky air suspensions, a lot of problems, loud air compressors, inconsistent or uneven ride height. So those are some of the things that we're seeing on the Model X. Also, some of these repairs are tedious. Like I had an example. I was at my buddy's car dealership, and a guy had an issue with his. We had an issue with a Model X headrest, and you would think it'd be an easy fix. Mobile guy came out. He was there all day. There were literally 30 rivets in the back of the seat, and he had to drill out every single one of those rivets just to replace this headrest. And since we're seeing a lot of those more, mostly all Model X repairs now, I think, are you have to go to a service center for. And for us, that's a 3-hour drive. So with charging. So yes, extended warranties on these cars due to repairs. I mean, I'm seeing extended warranties run up about $5,000 to cost total about $5,000 on these cars. With most cars, you get extended warranty for $3,000. Model X, you're looking at $5,500 for an extended warranty on these cars, just because their repair costs and maintenance costs are getting so high. All right, next on your list.
So my next one it's actually 2 cars, but they're 1 car. It's the Toyota BZ4X and the Subaru Solterra. And so this one is one of those that it would be an okay car if not for a couple kind of glaring issues that Subaru and Toyota both know exist, but I don't know that they have really put forth the effort to fix it. And the main issue, they have abysmal DC fast charging performance, and that's coming from someone who drives a Chevy Bolt. Okay.
Yes, if you have to compare this to a Chevy Bolt, there's.
And the main issue with these 2 vehicles is not even that they, on paper they should charge okay. They have, I think, a peak is quoted somewhere in the 150 kilowatt range, which should be great. Like, especially just considering battery size and everything. But it's very erratic. It's very inconsistent. And then even to the point that it was found out pretty quickly after they started selling the cars that the cars would actually limit how many DC fast charges you could do in a day, which is crazy because when you look at, we're talking 200-ish miles of range. If you can only DC fast charge twice in a day, you're essentially limiting yourself to never driving the car more than 400 miles.
Yep.
Especially in a 24-hour period. And later on, we'll talk about kind of some of the actual limits that are there because one of the other cars in the platform actually tells you what the limits are. Toyota and Subaru don't, which I think is interesting considering those are the mainstream vehicles. But anyway, yeah, it's one of those when you look it up, you see owners talk about, even though they've never, maybe they tried the first time they had the car and they tried to DC fast charge, they never saw a speed over 50 kilowatt. It shouldn't be limiting at that point. And there's owners that claim to have never seen anywhere near 100 kilowatt. And so just when you have, an okay, because to me, it's an okay looking car. It's a good package, it's RAV4 sized or whatever. It's got kind of a standard Toyota interior, which is fine. It will outlive the rest of the car. But then you just combine it, you have all these okay, would be fine, acceptable, and then you just slap on, oh, but you can't trust it.
Yep.
If you want to do more than commute in it, you can't trust it, or you're just going to spend forever doing it. And so anyway, that just kind of kills it. And then just all of that, and then it's not price competitive. The BZ4X starts at $43,000, and the Solterra starts at $44,000, and I don't believe either one qualifies for a tax credit. So I mean, for crossover, like in the other crossovers, that's not like an awful price, but when you combine that just with the other stuff, it makes it a non-starter.
Yeah. So I'll talk about this now. I also have the Toyota BZ4X and Subaru Solterra on my list. My question is, these are 2 legitimate, good, vehicle manufacturers. I don't know why they had to partner on this. I mean, it seems like Subaru and Toyota have enough resource to come out with their own EVs. But like you said, the charging curve is horrible. Like you said, I've read no speeds over 50 kilowatt, and that can't happen in an EV these days. Reports of never getting, like I've seen videos where people try to charge the car to 100% and it literally never gets there. Like for some reason, it gets to 97, 98 and just stops. I mean, these people have been on superchargers for an hour, 2 hours. It never gets to 100%. And like you said, all this kind of a hot mess for a $45,000 car. I can get a Model Y for $45,000 now. So, I mean, why would I choose, unless I'm just loyal to Toyota or Subaru, why would I choose that over a Model Y that gets me 300-mile range, and I don't have to worry about any of the issues of charging on out, easily over 200 kilowatts each time charging on that. What I understand is, why didn't Toyota just make an all-electric Prius? I mean, that would have been the smart thing to do. You have a plug-in hybrid, you have a hybrid Prius, just use that use that technology, make an all electric Prius, and you'll sell the heck out of them. So it's just weird. I never see any of these cars on the road. I think I've seen one Subaru Solterra on the road. Never see any Toyota BZ4Xs on the road. So yeah, it's just weird that a great car manufacturer, like you said, Toyota, you could run those things into the ground. My parents had a Toyota until the door handles rusted off. Would put out an EV like this. It's just weird. It's just weird to me. So
Yep.
All right, what's next on your list?
So my next one is the luxury counter to the BZ4X and Solterra. It's the Lexus RZ. And so I originally wasn't going to give it its own listing number, but when I was going through Lexus website trying to get some stuff on it, there was some little tidbits in there that I found interesting. So it has all of the exact same issues that the BZ4X and Solterra have. But because it's the luxury car, it comes on bigger wheels, has maybe some slightly different like tuning. On the highest trim level, it has less than 200 miles of range. I think the EPA rating is 196, which means real world you're not probably getting anywhere close to that, which is crazy. And it starts at 55 grand, and that top trim level is 65 grand for less than 200 miles of range. And on the Lexus website, it actually kind of goes into the specifics about that DC fast charge limiting scenario. So I'm just going to kind of read a snippet off of here real quick, just because it's very odd to me. So they advertise on their website, one key factor that affects DC fast charging is weather. As temperatures decrease, DC charging time will increase. Good to know, especially new EV driver. That's probably what a lot of Lexus customers are. They've never driven an EV. That's good to know. That's great. Good job, Lexus. Then it follows up. Charging time will also increase if multiple DC fast charging sessions are conducted within the same day, regardless of the weather. And so then you scroll further down on their website, and there's a FAQ question that says, how frequently can I DC fast charge? In order to ensure effective charging and preserve battery health over the life of the vehicle, please plan no more than 3 DC fast charge sessions per day. After 10 to 80% state of charge DC sessions, a threshold can be reached, which will result in DC charging speed being significantly reduced. Over time, the battery will gradually recover. One additional high-speed charge can be completed after approximately 6 hours.
So you have to bank your time.
It's just, why is it complicated like that? What is the reason? And we talk about, if they're saying you can do 3 DC fast charges in a day before they will severely limit your speed, which they do. From when I was looking at like owners' reports, they're talking about after the second or third DC fast charge getting limited to 13 kilowatts.
Woo! That's level 2 charger right there almost.
Yeah, that you could probably that probably will charge faster on level 2 than it will at DC at that point. For no reason. And so, but on like the RZ, if you're talking less than 200 miles of EPA range and no more than 3 DC fast charges, you can't go more than 600 miles in a 24-hour period. Just period. And then you have to wait for the car to give it back to you. When does the timer reset? Does it reset 24 hours after the last charge, or is it 24 hours after the, how does it bank? It's just, if you buy one of those, and your typical Lexus owner isn't going to know what any of what I just said means. Especially if it's their first EV, and all that's going to do is they're going to buy the car and then get mad the first time they try to take it to their in-laws' house or, their kid's house that live down in Florida, just whatever. They're going to get on the road. They're going to get to that second charge stop and be like, why does it happen? I hate this stupid car, blah, 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 blah. And then they post about it on Facebook, and it's, and then it runs wild from there. So anyway, that one might legitimately be a bad car.
Yes. And these are the kind of cars that give electric vehicles a bad name. They say, well, Toyota has a car that only gets 50 kilowatts per charge, and you can't charge it more than 3 times in a day. And it just, I don't know. With the way battery technology has increased and has developed over the last, 10 years since, we started doing these, or more than 15 years, you think we should be past the fact of conserving, batteries, considering, cars on the road today. I think it's less than 1% will ever need the battery replaced. That ever reports on that. It's just, it doesn't make sense anymore. I think people are too concerned.
Yeah, and that's my only batteries. That's my only theory, is that Toyota is trying to be ultra conservative with like battery longevity. But I mean, they should have the resources to build a cooling system for the battery to where you can DC fast charge it all day long and it never get hot. Stuff like that. Like, they should be able to, I know they have good engineers, they should be able to engineer through it. but instead they limit their customers to pretty arbitrary and significant limits.
Yeah. If these brand new, EV startups can develop a car in 2 or 3 years and get it to charge 150 kilowatts on a DC fast charger, it should not be an issue for Toyota. All right, so my next couple are cars that were really cool, but were plagued by software. And one of them we have to say rest in peace to, and that is the Fisker Ocean. So yes, it was a pretty cool looking car. Henrik Fisker is known to design really cool things. However, he always seems to get bogged down when it comes to manufacturing. So good idea, bad execution. So simple reports. The key fob wasn't working. Several reports I read, you couldn't even use the key fob to open the car. Normal things like no adaptive cruise, no lane centering, no auto high beams. And these are things that are just standard on every car these days. The one pedal driving was horrific. There was a federal probe that looked into the door handle failures, issues with door handles happening. The direct to consumer sale that flopped. I know they tried to reach out to dealer groups. They got a couple with no luck. And this was a car that was base price of $38,900, which is not bad, and competes with a Model Y on the tax credit, but pretty good build quality. Software held them back. And also, no one knew this car company existed. I mean, unless you're EV geeks like us, you knew about Fisker, you knew about what they did and what they were doing, but just a random person going out there saying, "Hey, I think I'm going to go buy an EV." Fisker Ocean wasn't on the tip of their tongue. So I think, yeah. Great, cool car, great design, just plagued by software, which a lot of these startups are having issues with. They rush them and they get plagued by software.
Yeah,
So,
and that's one, Fisker's done this a couple times now. Well, they'll make a pretty dang good car and then end up going bankrupt, like they did that with the original Fisker Karma. It's just kind of what they do. And that's one, Fisker wasn't building the car. That was built by Magna, and that's why the build quality was excellent. They
Yep.
make good cars, but at the end of the day, if the software is not worth anything, then that's all the cars are now, is software.
Yep. That is true. All right, next on your
Weirdly, I
list, we got.
saw. Oh, I was just going to say, weirdly, I've
Sorry.
seen more Fiskers on the road since they declared bankruptcy than I ever did beforehand.
Yeah, they were selling. I forget what I saw online, but they were selling them dirt cheap. But then again, I don't know how you're going to fix them. I don't know how you're going to fix them because there's no service station. So yeah. All right, what you got next now?
So my next one is I listed the Jaguar I-Pace. So it's the one that Waymo is using for their driverless taxis, as kind of the base car, and it's been used in a couple other situations. Like this is one that's, to me, a really good-looking car, but it's hasn't been updated really since they released it. And so they released it in 2018, and now it's 2024. Still rocking on 2018 technology. And so it's just kind of one of those, it's time to let the old man go to rest. It's got slow DC fast charging. It was good for 2018, but not good for 2024. Low range, and then it's just expensive, but it's a Jaguar. They're always expensive, but, starting MSRP is $72,000. So anyway, it's just kind of one of those, it just needs to be retired, and I think it will be. I think Jaguar has announced they plan to discontinue it, I think, for 2024 or 2025. But
so which one was it, the I-Pace or the F-Pace? The one that had was it the fire issues? I believe one of those had some issues with
I don't remember.
I have to do some more research on that. I may be wrong on that, but that's what I heard. All right, so next on my list is the good old Vinfast VF8 from our friends in Vietnam. So another company probably normal people haven't heard of. Vinfast started off in Vietnam. Their car starts at $47K, which I compare it to the Model Y because that is the benchmark and standard for all vehicles, to get you 260-mile range, which is less than Model Y, 10 to 70, percent, 31 minutes. Not bad. I mean, here we go back to the Toyota thing. If VinFast can make a car that charges 10 to 70%, 31 minutes, Toyota can. I was hesitant to put this one on the list because at least they're trying. I mean, if you read what's going on with VinFast, they are trying with their software updates and things like that to get a handle on what is going on. They do have frequent over-the-air updates. They do offer a 10-year, 125,000 miles standard warranty. So you're not going to get a better warranty in any other car than that. 10-year, 125,000 miles standard warranty. I've also seen issues where VinFast, so if they're having issues, they're going to buy the car back from you. I've seen that as well. I believe they tried to direct to consumers. I believe they're now going through some dealership groups for sales. I've read some places in North Carolina that are selling the VinFast. It's one of those you got to drive to. You know, I don't even know the closest place to go to get a VinFast in Arkansas. Would it be Dallas, St. Louis? You know, it's probably
I think it would
one of
actually
those
be
places.
Wichita.
Wichita, yes, the VinFast capital of the world would be Wichita, Kansas. So yeah, my opinion that they rushed a car, lack of service centers. I heard they were flying people over to Vietnam, paying them, you know, giving them nice hotels, feeding them, paying them to give good reviews. Infotainment centers bad. Random messages pop up on the display. Heard reports of just loud noise coming from the radio. Small storage. Build quality is mediocre. I've heard, you know, inside is kind of cheap, plasticky, and for $47K, that shouldn't be the case. Parts breaking off and things like that. So I think VinFast, if they seem to have the money to keep moving forward, maybe in the overseas market they do a little better and they have more models. But I think they're gonna have to do some software updates and get that under wraps before moving forward here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up.
I just want to jump back to the iPace real quick. It was the iPace that had the fire recall. It was the
Oh,
same
okay.
LG chemical. It was the same LG battery issues that plagued the Bolt and the Hyundai Kona.
Oh, so they all kind of share the same battery. That's good.
Yep.
I figured that. I knew it was one of them. Not sure. All right,
Yep.
so this should be your last one. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, what you got?
So my final car is the Nissan Leaf. And it's another one of those that I like the Leaf. Like, as a commuter car, I think the Leaf is excellent. But as someone who lives somewhere with weather, I don't think it's ever going to be an option for me. Just because, you know, it's 2024 and we're talking about a vehicle that has a CHAdeMO port. It's the only vehicle currently on sale in the US with a CHAdeMO port. There's no active battery management, so, you know, heat and cold are the two things that hurt batteries most, and this car has nothing to help either of those. It's all air cooled, you know, just it gets what it can get, and then just the battery is small. So for a commuter car, that's fine. You know, something to get you around town, get you to work and back, whatever. You know, 40 kilowatt hours is enough for that. I think it's 100 and something miles of range. You know, that's great. But you talk about, you know, you can't reliably DC fast charge it because there's not that many CHAdeMO stations anymore, and the ones that are there are being phased out or replaced. And that which there is an adapter now that ATZ has to go from CHAdeMO to CCS, which is cool, but it's also like over $1,000 just for an adapter, you know, to kind of limp along this aging platform that Nissan weirdly is still manufacturing. I really thought the Leaf was going to die when the Aria came out, but it hasn't yet. But yeah, just mainly its biggest flaw to me is having no active battery management. You know, when you see these used Leafs pop up on Facebook Marketplace, one of the first things you always have to do is look at and see if there's a picture of the gauge cluster where you can see how many bars are left on the battery, just because that's the only way to see battery health. And yet at this point, you don't see any that are more than like 3 or 4 years old that have all of their bars left, which is fine, but it definitely is a consideration. You know, we live somewhere where it gets really hot and really cold, which is
It could be
not
100,
good
it
for
could be
these
10.
batteries.
I mean, yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, Nissan Leaf. Yeah, I mean, I think you like you said, at the time, it was a good car for what it needed to be. It was a good EV for when it came out. It really hasn't evolved much over the years. I think maybe switching to CCS, and that's about the only evolving that it has done. I read recently with Kyle Connor from Out of Specs, I believe he went to a car lot in Fort Collins, and he was able to get a Nissan Leaf 2024 for $500 down and $20 per month. And that includes fees, taxes, everything out the door. $500 down and $20 per month. So if you're in the Fort Collins area and you want to leave, head on over to Fort Collins Nissan and get you a Leaf for that price. But yeah,
just
I
don't
hope
plan on fast charging it.
don't plan on fast charge it. But I think hopefully they do something with the Bolt. They take it off the shelf for a while, redesign it, because you know the Aria is Nissan's only really flagship EV, but it's kind of pricey. If they can bring a car back around, you know, $35,000, you know, I think that's what they need to do. Take it back to the shop, rework it, you know, redo the guts and bring it back in a year or two, kind of like what they're going to do with the Bolt, and you'll have a very good car in your hands. So
yeah, maybe it'll come back with an LFP battery pack.
yes. All right, my last one on the list is kind of similar to the Jaguar. I don't think it's coming back for 2024, but you could buy it in 24. Was the Mazda MX30. So this thing is low on everything. So 100 miles of range, $35,000. And it was only available in California. And I'm sure that's to comply with some California law that you have to have an EV or something like that. I'm sure that's why it was only sold in California, but in limited numbers. it didn't last that long. They announced in 2023 that they were discontinuing it, but you might be able to get a deal on one of these. But for $35,000 at 100 miles of range, I mean, you can get what we're in Model 3 territory now with tax credits, you know, or you know, that's more than a Bolt. And a Bolt gets what, 250, 220, 250. You're the Bolt expert. So 230. So this is, you know, a Bolt's going to give you more than double the range of this for, you know, same for less price. So it had reverse opening doors too, kind of like, you know, those old Hyundai Velocitars, whatever they were called, kind of the reverse opening doors. Had cramped rear seats, you know, had 35 kilowatt hour battery. They say 100 miles, but real world, a lot of people are saying like 90, 92 miles real world on that. It looked kind of stylish, and you'll see some pictures here pop up on here. It looked kind of stylish, but I think this kind of car serves better as a plug-in hybrid than it did as a all electric EV. So so that was our 5. Sebastian gave his, I gave mine. Sebastian, have anything to add before we go?
No, just I don't remember, but you know, they had talked about on the MX30 doing a rotary, bringing the rotary back as kind of a plug-in generator, but I don't know if that was actually going to happen or true, but it'd be interesting. That is one I agree with you. It looks pretty nice. It has that i3 vibe, the BMW i3 vibe to it, with the rear opening doors for the back seat. But yeah, 100 miles of range for anything, especially because it was released, you know, when it came out, 100 miles of range was tiny.
Yep.
And so it has only aged poorer and poorer as the years have gone.
Yeah, I mean, if this was something that they just released, you know, over in Europe and things like that, I can make sense of that. But for a car in America, unless you're driving, like, you know, all you're doing is driving to work and home, and that's it. Maybe if you live in New York City and you never travel, it's your second car. That is the only way, you know, a car like this, you know, really makes sense, and that's probably why they are.
But then you couldn't buy it in New York City, so.
Yep, sure. You got, unless you went to California and drove a car that gets 100 miles on a mile range back with you. So that would be an interesting video. That would be one I like to watch.
That's when you put it on a trailer behind a U-Haul.
Yes, I like to see someone drive a car with 100-mile range from California. That would be a race I'd like to see. All right, well, I think that wraps it up for the day. Thank you for joining us on this episode, Sebastian. As remember, you can find Sebastian at Kilowatt Station. You can also don't forget to subscribe to the EV Geek podcast on our YouTube channel. You can also follow us at the EV Geek on X as well. And as always, please give us your comments. We want to know what you think. Do you think we missed the mark? Do you have other EVs that you think were worse than these? We'd like to know. Thank you for listening, and we will see you again on our next episode. So long, everyone.
See y'all.